Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
You're watching Now Let's Review, and this week we've got the Fuell Folld-1. Let's review it. All right, let's start with price, because I think that's what's going to divide us on this episode.
Okay.
It is MSRP $23.95, but you can get it on sale for $19.95. So there's a $2,000 e-bike.
So yeah, it's one of those forever sales, and this is off of Fuell's website.
Right. So it's a pretty cool looking bike. It's a foldable bike, and we'll go through all the stats, but I'm just going to start off by saying it's too expensive for what you get, in my opinion. What do you think?
Well, let's talk about the fundamentals and see why you think that way. So first and foremost, this is a 750 watt rear hub motor, cadence sensing, foldable e-bike with 20-inch tires, 4 inches wide, so they're fat tire. There are a lot of bikes in this category. There are a lot of cheaper bikes in this category. And so I think that that is where you are coming from. With the cadence sensing, which means that it's not so great in terms of the pedaling assist, and with kind of a middle-of-the-road battery size, we'll get into that later, you're saying basically not worth the price.
Yeah, for $2,000, you've got to give me torque sensing.
Okay.
That's my holdout. I think that this just brings it down to a much lower value in my opinion. Now I know it's got dual suspension. I know that, like you said, it can fold, but if it doesn't feel great when I'm riding it, then I don't want to spend $2,000 on it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the componentry on this bike. So we have a Samsung battery at 720 watt hours, which is kind of middle of the road for this style of e-bike.
For this weight of bike. If you're going to give me a 720 watt hour battery, that's fine, but I need to get some decent range. And the problem is it's a really heavy bike. So this is 74.5 pounds without the battery, but it is 82.5 pounds with the battery. And so once you add the rider to that, that's contributing to the fact that you're not going to get a great range. So they claim that you're going to get a range of 70 miles. Wow, that sounds awesome. That's if you're pedaling at pedal assist 1. If you are throttling the whole time, they claim that you're going to get a range of 30 miles. I don't think that either of those numbers is true. I think that you're never going to get 70 miles. I think that you're going to get closer to 45 or 50 in the best case, and probably 20 miles if you're throttling it the whole time. So again, for $2,000, I'm not interested.
But, you know, Samsung battery, so it's a more reliable battery supplier, which means you don't have to be as worried about the battery. Let's move on to the hub motor. So this is a Bafang 750 watt hub motor, which means that you're going to get some peak wattage that's going to be able to help you get up hills. But I hear what you're saying. You're paying a little bit more for a Bafang motor, which might last you a little bit longer on a bike that you don't really want to ride, and that doesn't have the greatest range.
I will give you, the styling is cool, and it's a magnesium frame, which I've never heard of before.
Yeah, they called it a magnesium alloy. It looks like aluminum to me. I'm not the biggest metallurgist in the world. Okay, well then let's move on to the tires. I mean, 20-inch, 4-inch wide tires.
It's kind of standard. I mean, you could buy a Lectrek e-bike for $899 that would have a lot of these same features.
True, but these are CST tires. Does that change your opinion at all?
No, what does would be the fact that these are hydraulic brakes instead of mechanical, so that's always nice. The manufacturer states that the lowest height you can be to ride this comfortably is 5 feet, all the way up to 6'3". I'm 5'9", and I think I'm probably the smallest rider that would comfortably fit on this bike, maybe 5'7". Because I would put the seat, I put it really low, and I still don't feel that comfortable on the bike.
Really depends on your leg to torso ratio. Height doesn't necessarily answer all the questions.
I don't think you're going to put a lot of kids on this bike.
It's a good point. Let's move on to folding. I mean, this bike can fold in half, and then the handlebars can fold down, making it a lot smaller.
That's really nice. Yeah, it means that probably you can fit it into the back of an SUV, no problem. But I think you should have 2 people to do that, unless you're really buff.
It's such a heavy bike that making it folding isn't all that practical.
Even when we folded it a few times, we had to do it together, and really we had to be coordinated because it's so heavy.
And I will concede also that in order to get the battery out of the bike, in order to charge it, you have to fold it at least halfway through its fold to about 90 degrees, and that's really hard to do with just one person, which means that if you arrive somewhere like your work, and you work in a skyscraper or whatever, you're not going to take the whole bike up with you. So great, I can take the battery up, but the folding of the bike to get the battery out of this tube is a bit of a pain.
The other thing is top speed. So it's 20 mile an hour top speed. And I'm not a fast rider, but there are times when I want 28 miles an hour. We've talked about it before. You're on a road and you want to keep up with traffic, or you want to get through an intersection. And this bike is going to top out at 20. So for me, again, for $2,000, I want to be able to go a little faster sometimes.
Now, counterpoint to that is they put a gear set on this bike that allows you to continue pedaling comfortably at 20 miles an hour. So there's 8 gears, and in 8th gear, you can actually pedal and keep up with the motor.
That's nice.
Which I think is really nice. It should help increase your range a little bit, although obviously you're not going to get stellar range with this thing. But I think that the implementation of the gearing system is one of the nicest on any of the Cadence bikes that we've tested, just because you won't run into ghost pedaling where you're just pretending to pedal. You hear the sprocket, you know, clicking as you're not putting in any power.
I will say I really appreciate the seat. It's got springs and it's nice and wide for the wider butts, which I appreciate.
Sure.
And I do appreciate that it's got front and rear suspension. It's a little terse for me, so I mean it's great when you hit that massive pothole or curb, but like it's the fat tires that are going to absorb most of the regular bumps.
That's a good point. I want to talk about the general layout of the bike. A lot of folders will go with this style stem, pretty much the exact same steering stem. And the problem that I hate about it is that it just looks so stupid.
Yeah, I feel like this is maybe a cultural thing. I feel like in China this is just seen as like great, but here to me it looks cheap for some reason. So I mean that's going to be subjective on your part. The other thing that looks cheap to me is the screen. It looks like a bike from 4 years ago or 5 years ago where they just slapped on the screen. Also, the thumb throttle here is one of these crappy, like we've seen them for years, just doesn't feel quality. Again, for $2,000, I want something a little more quality.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really does feel like they focused on some of the more fundamental features to put the money into, such as the, you know, the brakes, the battery, and the motor. But you're right, a lot of the other aspects of this bike feel pretty cheap. You have this giant hinge, which you'll definitely whack your knee on. Again, the look is interesting. It's different, but I think it's different for a reason. I think that most people, when you think of e-bike or bike in general, you don't think of something that looks like this.
I'm trying to think of the price where I would be excited about this bike, and I got to be honest, it's like $1,100. Then you'd start to go, okay, it's worth it for the componentry.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we've seen bikes with very similar fundamentals in terms of the battery size, the motor, and the wheels. I mean, that's kind of what you're looking for when you're looking for a bike, and the folding. I mean, we've seen bikes that are cheaper than this, and we saw them years ago. So I think that that's what leads me to not be so excited about this bike. I think that they've implemented a bunch of different things well. It's just that the package in its entirety isn't my favorite.
I love that it has fenders. They're plastic, but they're great.
I like the rear rack. I mean, again, it's very standard looking rear rack. It's removable, houses your tail light. You also get a front headlight, which is nice. Again, we've seen these before. It's nothing new, nothing extraordinary about the headlight or anything like that.
The pedals fold in, so you gain a couple extra inches when you're folding the whole thing. That's nice.
The things that I don't like about this e-bike would be this big cord here.
I never liked that.
They have to do it because, you know, the whole stock folds down. Then you have some cables that are exposed over here, just inches away from the wheels. Not that rocks are going to be coming up from that direction, but it just doesn't make you feel good to see all of these exposed cables everywhere. You have a big exposed cable here, and then because it's a folder, you have this big thing that sticks down at the bottom, so that way when it's folded it won't hit that front gear. But it does mean that if you're going off-road, this is something that might hit a big boulder that you're trying to cross.
I do like that they double protected the front crank gear, so both sides, so that's really nice because it's one of those things you don't think much about, but then someday you catch your pants on it or something, so good for them. All in all, I'd say if you're looking for a high quality bike that's going to last longer, and if you're willing to pay for the longevity, I think that the components will last longer. And so if this fits your needs, meaning you're never going to put it on a bike rack, because let me tell you, putting this thing on a bike rack definitely is two people, and you have to have a serious bike rack to do it.
Yeah, and especially for only having 20-inch tires. I mean, I would go for an e-bike with larger tires. 26-inch tires soaks up bumps better just because of the radius of the wheel. Geometry works out to be a little bit better. A couple of goofy things to me. They have this little like magnet thing for when you fold it up. The magnet is not strong enough to keep it folded, and then you just have this thing which sticks out, which means that when you're trying to like weave it through maybe your garage or something, it's just going to catch.
And that tells me something about the engineering at a company. When I see something that I don't like, I go, so wait, your engineers didn't catch that? Like, and if they didn't catch that, what else didn't they catch? Or what else could they have done better? I just feel like a lot of these companies slap things together. Now, this frame doesn't speak that. This frame speaks that they put some time and energy into this. But the other componentry is just off the shelf. And so that's fine. But then give me a better price.
Yeah, I would, you've convinced me.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I think that of the cadence sensing folder e-bikes, this probably feels the nicest just because of the pedal assist levels actually matching up to something in the gearing that you could actually pedal with. But yeah, I wouldn't really want to take this on a long ride, especially because if you have to get it home by some other means than pedaling or e-bike, it's just way too heavy.
If you're looking at this right now and you're kind of interested and you're like, well, but is there anything else you could point me to? Go check out Lectrek. We'll put that on screen here because it's sounds like electric, but it's electric. Their bikes are cheaper, and I think have a lot of the same features for a lot less money.
Did not pay us to say that.
Nope.
That's just, we're doing, I mean, honestly, care about you guys, so that's why we're telling you.
I think their componentry is less expensive, and so maybe it won't last as long. But that's kind of my question to you guys is, if you're kind of new to e-bikes, your first e-bike might not last you that long anyway, and it might not after a year be what you really wanted.
Yeah.
You kind of do have to ride it a lot to find out, oh, you know what? I can't live without torque sensing.
And
that's me, by the way. I love torque sensing now, and I really don't like to go backwards to cadence sensing.
I would say that as a gateway drug into e-bikes, this is not your gateway drug. It's too expensive. And so if you wanted to be getting into e-biking and you just want to dip your toes in the water, I would definitely go for something cheaper. You'd basically get this bike. Maybe it wouldn't look as cool, but you would at least know if you like, you know, traveling by an e-bike. Whether or not you figure out if you like cadence sensing or not, that's something that you can work towards, you know, a bike that you actually want to spend more money on versus something like this, which is just overpriced.
So let us know down in the comments what you guys think. Let us know also what you'd like us to review, because that's what we're here for, guys. We want to review stuff that you want reviewed. Also, don't forget, hit the like button and the subscribe button. That really helps us out so we can keep bringing you great content.